Picture two apartments. Same city, same block, roughly the same rent. The first belongs to someone pulling in $95,000 a year. Walk inside, and there's a massive TV mounted on the wall, a $4,000 leather sectional, a kitchen stacked with appliances still in their boxes, closets bursting with clothes that still have the tags on, and a spare room that's basically a storage unit for things nobody's touched in years. This person checks their bank balance with a knot in their stomach. They're two missed paychecks from a real problem. The second apartment belongs to someone making $52,000 a year. Walk inside, and the first thing you notice is space. A simple couch, a reasonably sized TV, a kitchen with exactly the tools that actually get used. The spare room is an actual bedroom. This person checks their account balance, completely calm. They've got a year and a half of expenses saved, and they're investing a fifth of every paycheck. Same neighborhood. The person earning almost half as much has roughly 10 times the financial security. This isn't really a story about income. It's a story about the hidden relationship between stuff and money that most people never fully connect. The first person isn't reckless. No gambling, no secret debt spiral. They just slowly build a lifestyle that eats every dollar they bring in. The second person figured out something that changes everything. Owning less doesn't mean living worse. It means living on purpose, and living on purpose creates financial breathing room that most high earners never get to feel. Today, I want to walk through the rules that separate people who always seem to have money from people who never do, regardless of what they earn. None of this is about deprivation. It's about understanding that everything you own keeps costing you, long after you've paid for it. Here's the concept that reframes every purchase you'll ever make. Everything you buy has two costs. The first is obvious, the number on the receipt. The second is the one almost nobody calculates, and it's often bigger than the first. That second cost is made up of storage, upkeep, mental bandwidth, and what you gave up to buy it. Take a treadmill. It needs floor space, and floor space isn't free. Depending on where you live, you're effectively paying somewhere around $30 to $50 a square foot a year just to house your belongings. A treadmill with clearance room eats up close to 20 square feet. That's several $100s a year in invisible rent for a machine that's mostly holding laundry. Then there's upkeep. A boat parked in the driveway needs winterizing, cleaning, registration, insurance, occasional repairs. A common rule of thumb puts annual upkeep around 10% of what the boat's worth. A $30,000 boat is quietly costing you a few $1,000s a year, even if it never touches water. Then there's mental load. Everything you own takes a small slice of your attention. It has to be cleaned, tracked, insured, and eventually dealt with. There's real research linking visual clutter to elevated stress hormones and reduced focus. Your possessions are quietly taxing your brain in ways you don't consciously register. And finally, there's what you gave up. Every dollar tied up in stuff is a dollar that isn't invested. That expensive home gym setup could instead have been sitting in an index fund, quietly compounding into something several times larger over a decade or two. You didn't just buy equipment. You bought equipment instead of future freedom. Add all of this up, and a huge number of things cost more to own than they cost to buy. The price tag is just the entry fee. Rule 1. Calculate cost per use. Before you buy anything, guess honestly how many times you'll actually use it, then divide the price by that number. That's the only honest measure of value. A $200 jacket you wear twice costs $100 a wear. A $400 jacket you wear constantly for years might cost you a couple of dollars a wear. The expensive one is actually the cheaper choice. This single calculation kills most impulse buys instantly. That gadget you'll use twice a year is absurdly expensive per use, no matter how small the price tag looked in the store. Meanwhile, a cheap tool you reach for every week ends up costing pennies per use. It also flips the script on big purchases. A great mattress, used every single night for a decade, ends up costing basically nothing per use for something that shapes your health and energy daily. A good espresso machine, used daily for years, can end up cheaper per use than a coffee shop habit. The math cuts through marketing and emotion and tells you what's actually worth it. Rule 2. Run the replacement test. Walk through your home and, item by item, ask yourself one honest question. If this disappeared today, would I actually go buy it again? For most things, the honest answer is no. They're not there because you chose them. They're there because of inertia. Impulse buys, guilt-driven gifts, leftovers from hobbies you've long since moved on from. Those items have negative value. They cost you space, attention, and cleaning time without giving anything back. Every minute spent organizing around things you wouldn't rebuy is a minute stolen from something that actually matters. Sell what has value. Give away what someone else could use. Toss what serves no one. It's uncomfortable at first and genuinely freeing once it's done. Rooms feel bigger. Decisions feel simpler. Cleaning takes half the time because everything left has a job to do. Rule 3. Never upgrade out of boredom. There's a pattern among people who earn well but never build wealth. They replace perfectly good things simply because something newer exists. The TV works fine, but the new model has slightly better color. The phone works flawlessly, but the new one has a marginally better camera. The car runs great, but the new year's model looks nicer. These upgrades feel like progress. They're actually wealth quietly leaking out. The discipline here is simple. Never replace something that still functions properly. A phone that makes calls and runs your apps doesn't need replacing because a newer one exists. Over a lifetime, the habit of chasing every new phone release alone can cost tens of thousands of dollars. And stacked across every category where new version marketing exists, the lifetime total is enormous. The trick is defining functional honestly. Boredom isn't failure. Wanting something new isn't failure. Actual breakdown, or a genuine inability to do the job, is failure. Everything else is marketing convincing you to solve a problem you don't have. Rule 4. Add friction to spending. Remove friction from saving. People take the path of least resistance. Make spending easy and saving hard, and you'll spend. Flip that, and you'll save. Adding friction to spending looks like deleting save cards from shopping sites, giving yourself a mandatory 24-hour pause before non-essential purchases, deleting shopping apps, unsubscribing from promotional emails, and not walking into stores without a specific thing to buy. Removing friction from saving looks like automatic transfers to investments the day you get paid, keeping only a small buffer in checking, and treating saving like a fixed bill instead of whatever's left over. This matters more than willpower because willpower runs out by the end of a long day. Your environment doesn't. Someone relying on self-control to resist a 10 p.m. online cart eventually loses that fight. Someone who already deleted the app simply can't. And that 124-hour rule alone quietly kills a huge share of impulse buying, since most cravings for a thing fade if you don't act on them immediately. Rule 5. Actually count what you own. This sounds excessive until you try it. Counting creates awareness, and awareness stops accumulation. Pick a category, shirts, kitchen gadgets, shoes, whatever's in the junk drawer, and count it. Write the number down. Most people guess low and find they own several times what they expected. Once you know you own 47 shirts, buying a 48th feels different. The absurdity becomes visible. Setting a real ceiling, a fixed number of clothing items, a max book count, a one-in one-out rule, stops lifestyle creep before it starts, because every new item now requires deciding what it's replacing. Rule 6. Rent or borrow before you buy. Most purchases get used hard for a few weeks, and then almost never again once the novelty wears off. Testing an interest by renting or borrowing first solves two problems at once. First, it tells you whether the enthusiasm is real or temporary. A lot of hobbies fizzle right after the honeymoon phase, and it's a lot cheaper to discover that while renting gear than after buying it. Second, it teaches you exactly what you actually need, so when you do eventually buy, you buy the right thing instead of guessing. Garages across the country are full of dusty ski gear, camera equipment, and instruments from interests that lasted a season. Test first. Buy once you're sure. Rule 7. Watch for the lifestyle multiplier. Almost nothing you buy stands alone. A boat needs a trailer, a hitch-capable vehicle, storage, maintenance supplies, safety gear. What looks like one purchase quietly drags a whole ecosystem of related spending behind it. A home gym needs flooring, mirrors, storage, sometimes renovation. A pool needs chemicals, covers, furniture, upkeep tools, often landscaping. A motorcycle needs gear, storage, and often a way to transport it. Before any major purchase, price out the whole ecosystem, not just the sticker price. A $5,000 purchase can quietly become $8,000 or $12,000 once every related cost is counted, and that full picture often turns a reasonable purchase into an obviously excessive one. This runs in reverse too. Selling one major item, the boat, say, often erases an entire category of ongoing costs, not just the item's resale value. Rule 8. Decide what enough looks like before you earn more. This is the trap that catches high earners constantly. They never define enough, so every raise just buys a bigger lifestyle, which becomes the new normal, which demands another raise just to feel like progress. That's why someone earning $300,000 can feel just as stretched as someone earning $80,000. Their expectations grew right alongside their paycheck. The fix is deciding in advance what a sufficient home looks like, what a sufficient car looks like, what level of comfort actually satisfies you, and then earning toward that fixed target instead of a moving one. Maybe that means deciding a modest, comfortable home is enough even if you could technically afford something twice the price. Maybe it's deciding your current car and wardrobe are genuinely fine even as income grows. Defining enough gives you a finish line. Without one, you're running a race where your lifestyle always outpaces your income. With one, every raise flows straight into savings and investing instead of consumption. Rule 9. Measure wealth by optionality, not stuff. Most people measure wealth by what they own, the house, the car, the visible markers. A better measure is what you can choose. Can you walk away from a job that's wrecking your mental health? Can you take months off for a family emergency? Can you start something new without a guaranteed paycheck? Can you say no to money that would compromise your values? Those choices are only available to people who've built real margin between income and spending. Someone earning $200,000 but spending nearly all of it has almost no freedom. They're locked to that income. Someone earning far less but spending a fraction of it has enormous freedom to absorb shocks and take chances. Every purchase, seen this way, isn't just trading money for an object, it's trading a bit of your future freedom for it. Sometimes that trade is worth it. Often it isn't. Rule 10. Declutter in small cycles, not big purges. Most people who try to simplify do one big purge, feel great for a few weeks, and quietly drift right back to where they started within a couple of years. The purge feels productive. The slow refill goes unnoticed. The fix is small, regular reviews instead. A quick glance weekly, one category reviewed monthly, an overall check quarterly. Removing a handful of items a week is sustainable. Removing hundreds once a year feels overwhelming and gets postponed indefinitely. Regular review also builds pattern recognition. You start noticing which categories keep growing, which moods trigger buying, which marketing tricks actually work on you. That awareness lets you prevent the problem instead of just cleaning it up later. Putting it into practice. This week, walk through your home with the replacement test in mind. Find 10 things you wouldn't rebuy and sell, donate, or toss them. This month, run the 24-hour rule on every non-essential purchase and actually track how many urges survive the wait versus how many just evaporate. This quarter, count your possessions in 2 or 3 categories that tend to balloon: clothing, kitchen items, media, and set a real ceiling for each based on what you genuinely use. This year, write down what enough looks like for your home, your transportation, your wardrobe, and refer back to it whenever the urge to upgrade shows up. Do this consistently for a few years, and the gap between your lifestyle and your income becomes the wealth that builds, the kind that can't be built any other way. The part nobody tells you. The relationship between owning less and having more money runs both directions. Owning less frees up money, but having real financial security also makes owning less feel natural. Once your savings are solid and your investments are compounding, the itch to accumulate quietly fades because the emotional need underneath most spending, the craving for security and status, Get satisfied by the strength of your finances instead of your stuff. People stuck in spending cycles often can't explain why they buy so much. Usually it's because spending briefly fills a hole that financial insecurity dug. Fix the insecurity through actual financial strength, and the urge to spend often dissolves on its own. That creates a virtuous loop. Spend less, save more, feel more secure. Want to spend less, save even more. The opposite loop is just as powerful in reverse. Spend everything, feel insecure, spend more for temporary relief, feel worse, and it runs until something forces a breaking point. That choice between loops shapes your financial trajectory more than your paycheck ever will. None of this is about suffering. It's about recognizing that most consumption barely moves the needle on how satisfied you actually feel. The research on this is pretty consistent. Yet most of us spend as if happiness scales endlessly with spending. The people who get ahead spend enough to be comfortable, then quietly redirect everything else toward freedom instead of accumulation. They end up with less stuff and a lot more life. That second apartment from the start of all this, the $52,000 income, the year and a half of savings, didn't get there through a bigger paycheck. It got there through clarity about what actually matters. The other apartment, 2 paychecks from crisis, got there by never questioning the assumption that more stuff means a better life. Both of those lives are available to you, no matter what you currently earn. The only real question is whether you want to own your things or let your things quietly own you. The math is not close.